Some of the most powerful stories out there aren't actually works of fiction at all. They're confessions. They're these cries for understanding that were written down but never really meant for the world to see. And today, we're going to dive into one of the most famous examples in all of literary history, a 45-page letter from a son to the father who loomed over his entire life.
So picture this. It's November 1919. A 36-year-old Franz Kafka sits down to write. But this isn't just any letter. It's basically a psychological autopsy of his own soul and an indictment of the man he felt was its main architect. He wrote it for his father, but what he ended up creating would resonate way beyond a single broken relationship.
The whole thing, this absolutely monumental confession, it's all sparked by one simple question his father had recently asked him. A question that just opens the floodgates to a lifetime of pain and analysis. And there it is, the opening line. Kafka goes on to explain that he can't even answer this question in person because he's trapped by the very fear he's being asked to explain. So he tries to answer in writing, knowing that the subject is bigger than memory and reason combined. This single question, it kicks the whole thing off.
So how do you even begin to explain a lifelong fear like that? Well, Kafka does something pretty brilliant. He doesn't start with his own feelings. No, he starts by laying out his father's case against him, almost like he's a prosecutor arguing for the other side. He meticulously, piece by piece, constructs his father's point of view. He summarizes all the complaints, all the accusations he's heard his entire life. It's like he's trying to show his father, look, I have heard you. I really do understand your perspective. And only then does he begin his own defense.
And here are the charges, right? That he, Franz, lived this life of ease that was bought and paid for by his father's sacrifice. And what did he give in return? Just coldness, ingratitude. That he avoided the family, hid away with his books and his weird friends, showed zero interest in the family business, and basically acted like he was above it all. This is the official story of their relationship, at least according to Hermann Kafka.
And this quote, wow, it just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the father's worldview, one that was forged in some incredible hardship. He sees his son's comfortable life not as a gift, but as a source of weakness, a giant chasm between them. He feels like his struggles are just completely incomprehensible to his son.
Okay, so after laying out his dad's whole case, Kafka begins his rebuttal. But here's the thing, it's not a denial of the facts. It's a total reframing. He argues their conflict wasn't really about gratitude or family feelings at all. It was about something much deeper, a fundamental, almost biological incompatibility. And this is the absolute heart of his argument. He describes his father as a true Kafka, someone who embodies strength, health, worldly dominance, a real will to conquer. But him? He says he's a Lowy, taking after his mother's side of the family. He sees himself as weaker, more timid, secretive, driven not by a will to conquer the world, but by this constant inner struggle.
Kafka even admits he would have been happy to have his father as a friend, or a boss, or even a grandfather. But as a father, his sheer force of personality was just too much. Kafka felt constitutionally overwhelmed, just too weak to withstand the force of nature that was Hermann Kafka.
And this kind of power imbalance, it had devastating consequences. It wasn't just about arguments. According to Kafka, it fundamentally shaped his entire personality, instilling this deep and permanent sense of guilt. He starts bringing in the evidence from his childhood. He describes a world governed by these heavenly commandments, rules laid down by his father that were absolute. But, and this is crucial, they didn't seem to apply to his father himself.
For example, he talks about mealtime. Rule number 1, you eat what you're given and you do not complain. A simple, strict rule. Makes sense, right?
But then, Kafka immediately points out the hypocrisy. His father would constantly complain about the food, calling it swill, demanding silence and gratitude from his son while he did it. For Kafka, this wasn't some minor thing. It was a world-defining betrayal. The lawgiver did not obey his own laws.
So you can imagine, right? This constant hypocrisy, over and over. It creates a world where Kafka feels like he can never, ever win. It bred this crippling lack of self-confidence and a sense of guilt that he carried with him his whole life, poisoning every single attempt he made at independence.
And it all comes to a head when he tries to get married. He saw marriage as the ultimate form of independence, the ultimate proof that he was his own man. But it was also, in his words, a danger, because that guilt and weakness he felt, which he says originates in you, his father, made him feel utterly incapable of taking that step.
So here we have this incredible 45-page document, a son's desperate, exhaustive attempt to finally be understood by his father. But the story doesn't end when he finishes writing. In fact, the most Kafka-esque twist is still yet to come.
So what happened to the letter? Well, Kafka didn't just drop it in the mail. He gave it to his mother to deliver to his father, maybe hoping she could be some kind of mediator. What happened next is revealed in the publisher's note that comes with the text today.
The judge and jury of this trial never even got the brief. His own mother, probably just trying to shield both her son and her husband from more pain, simply returned the letter to Franz. The one person it was written for never saw a single word of it.
And so, Hermann Kafka lived out the rest of his life, and he died, completely unaware that his son had written this exhaustive, soul-bearing analysis of their entire relationship. The plea was never heard. The trial never even took place.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering question. Kafka wrote the letter to be understood by his father, and in that he failed. But in the act of writing it, he came to understand himself, and he gave the world one of the most profound documents on family, fear, and identity ever written. So what do you think? Does a confession really need an audience to matter? Or is the act of writing it down its own kind of salvation?